about to win it. You must don't know Jalen Hurts like I know Jalen. Yeah. You must don't know Jalen Hurts like I know him. They don't know Jalen Hurts like we know Jalen Hurts. They don't know him. Come on, Jalen. You got us down here to tie it up. This time, let's go win the game. Come on, Jalen. Put it together, baby. Let them talk about you. Hey, it's a run. Jalen. Yeah! What I tell you? What I tell you? Ah! Hey! Yeah! Yeah! Let them know! Let them know!
You know, winning is the only thing that matters, but the standard is pretty darn important too.
Welcome into episode 18. It's insane we're already here on episode 18. But welcome here on episode 18. What a win for the Eagles on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. Trailing by 10 again at halftime. And then you score a touchdown and then you're trailing by 10 again. What a win for the Philadelphia Eagles. Another come from behind win. They refuse to lose. They just find ways to win. Week after week after week, no matter the team they're playing, they find ways to win. They refuse to lose. They've taken on almost the personality of the leader, Jalen Hurts. They've taken on his personality, and he has a Jordan-esque mentality to him, Tom Brady-esque mentality to him. Not saying he's those guys, but he has that type of mentality to him where he refuses to lose. He's not going to let anything stop him from winning. He wants to win, and that's his number one goal. That was insane, that second half out of the Eagles. That game was up and down, a game of the year candidate. Jalen Hurts balled out in the second half. 5 touchdowns in the second half. There are 5 touchdowns in the game, 4 in the second half. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles balled out in that game. It was just a stressful game being there. Jake Elliott. He's joined the Justin Tucker class. He's the best kicker in football right now. Jake Elliott is 4 for 4 for his career on field goals 58 yards or more. Justin Tucker, 3 for 13. Jake Elliott, 4 for 4. He doesn't miss. He's clutch. 59 yards in the rain. That was the most impressive kick I have ever seen in my life. If it's regular conditions, 59 yards, I expect him to hit it all day long because it's Jake Elliott. But in the rain, 59 yards in the rain with wind, that was the most impressive kick I've ever seen. I was in shock. I thought the game was over. I thought it was over. I was in shock that he actually nailed the kick. But what all the Eagles and Jalen Hurts do is just win. They just win week after week after week. They find ways to win these close games. They lost the one game to the Jets, but they find ways to win these close games. This team has no quit. You were down 10 in Arrowhead last week against the Chiefs. You come back and win. Who would have thought that they came back and who would have thought that they would have come back and won on the road against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes at Arrowhead of all places? And you come back and get a win? That's insane. They just find ways to win. Jalen Hurts, with that second half, to me, solidified MVP, as you can see by the caption. I think he solidified MVP as long as the Eagles get the 1 seed. Especially because since 2013, there's only been 2 times. It's been a quarterback every year that has gotten the MVP. And there's only been 2 times where it was not a 1 seed. And those 2 times were when it was a 2 seed in a conference. So it's been a 1 or 2 seed every year since 2013 that won MVP. 1 or 2 seed in their conference. So one of the top 4, a quarterback from the top 4 teams. Jalen Hurts fits that mold. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson both fit that mold. They're the 2 top, in my opinion. You'll see that. If you go and watch the video on TikTok, I gave my thoughts on that. But Jalen Hurts with that performance in the second half and winning that game in overtime, having a game-winning drive or game-tying drive to send it to overtime, or to set up the Jake Elliott field goal, then send it to overtime, and then have a game-winning drive after your defense holds them to 3. Jalen Hurts solidified MVP if they hold on to the 1 seed. He is the most clutch quarterback in all of football right now. There's not a clutcher quarterback than Jalen Hurts right now. He just wins. It's Brady-esque. Like I said, Jordan-esque. It's the Eagles in their last 35 games with Jalen Hurts under center. Ever since the Nick Sirianni flower speech, and this includes the playoffs, screw just the regular season stats. This includes the playoffs. 30-5 in their last 35 regular season games. That's insane. They just win. It's becoming Patriots-ish. Bill and Brady-ish. And I'm saying ish because it's not exactly, because those years were dominant. Those Patriots teams were dominant. But this Eagles team is becoming dominant. You're not winning games dominantly, but they just win each week. It's becoming hard to bet against them for people who bet on sports. It's becoming like where you can't pick against them because they're just going to prove you wrong. They win week in, week out, no matter the circumstances. I have some stats I have pulled up over here in my notes on my phone. I'm going to read some stats off for you all. For Jalen Hurts, in regards to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, when tied or trailing in the second half of the season, this is from Jeff Kerr of CBS. 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 136.6 passer rating. All first in the NFL. This man just wins. He's clutch. He refuses to lose. I saw some other stats. I'm going to pull those up. I have them like down on the other Twitter page, on Cage Sports Talk Twitter page. Jalen Hurts has won 5 straight games when trailing by 10 points at any point in the game. Last QB to do that was Joe Montana from 1989 to 1990. He won NFL MVP and Super Bowl MVP in 1989. 5 straight games when trailing by 10 or more points at any point in the game. That's insane. I've heard all this week, and this doesn't include playoffs. This one doesn't include playoffs. And it was part of last week as well. Part of last week's narrative as well. Jalen Hurts against teams above 500 in his last 14 games against teams above 500 is 13-1. So no matter the competition, no matter the moment, no matter how much you're trailing by, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles just win. It's as simple as that. Like, it's as simple as that. It's becoming Georgia-esque, Patriots-esque, Alabama-esque. You don't bet against the Eagles right now. You don't bet against Jalen Hurts. That man has a chip on his shoulder and refuses to lose. I'm going to get into the Niners game in a second, but before I do that, I just want to let you all know, because I just rambled on about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts refusing to lose, that this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. Just mainly talking about the Eagles this episode and then doing my power rankings and Luke's locks. I'm going to do college picks on a TikTok on Friday. That's going to come out on Friday before the conference championship games start. But back to the Eagles. They have a huge game coming up against the San Francisco 49ers. A rematch of the NFC Championship. This game, there's been some bad blood here. Deebo Samuel was calling James Bradbury trash in the offseason. A lot of Niners players were saying if it wasn't for Purdy getting hurt, they would have went to the Super Bowl. You should have proved it on the field then. Like, yeah, I know your quarterback got hurt. We, as Eagles fans, would be mad. But it was your head coach's fault he got hurt. He blocked a tight end on Hassan Reddick, a guy who had 16.5 sacks. That's no one else's fault but your head coach's fault. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, but it's just a little. I don't get all this Kyle Shanahan love. Sure, he's a good play caller, great play caller, actually, I should say. But before I get into some other stuff about this game coming up, this was one of my main points of the offseason. Kyle Shanahan, for him being a great play caller and all, he is not a good situational coach. Dating back to when he was an offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan is a choke artist of a coach. He's been in the Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator, had a 28-3 lead, and they lost. They choked a 28-3 lead. You're supposed to run the ball when you're up 28-3, and they weren't running the ball in that Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl. Running the ball through the clock. But no, he choked that game. He choked another Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Sure, the Eagles choked, but a lot of teams choke against the Chiefs, okay? But he choked the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, had a 10-point lead against the Chiefs, and wound up losing. He had against the Rams. He lost that. He lost an NFC championship against the Rams. Lost 2 straight NFC championships, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as they lost to... I got to double check my history there, but I'm pretty sure they lost 2 straight NFC championships prior to this year. No, they only lost one NFC championship, but still. He doesn't win big games. This year, he lost another NFC championship. He's lost 2 straight NFC championships the last 2 years. He doesn't win big games as a coach. The Niners are almost anti-Eagles. Sure, they're blowing teams out right now. But if it's close, they tense up. They fold under pressure. They're the anti-Eagles right now. They look more impressive, but in close games, they don't win. In the Kyle Shanahan era, there was a stat this week that was talked about. When they trail by 10 points, Kyle Shanahan hasn't won a game. When they trail by 10 points after halftime, Kyle Shanahan hasn't won a game trailing by 10 points after halftime in the Shanahan era in San Fran. His offense is not built to come back from behind. Their team's great if they get a lead. If they get a lead, you're not coming back. That's my biggest fear this weekend. If they get a lead, you're screwed. Because the pass rush is going to get after you. They're going to unleash the hounds. They're going to unleash the hounds. Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead. They're going to unleash those guys if they get a lead and not look back. They're going to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback if they get a lead. And then their offense is going to get into what they do well, running the ball with Christian McCaffrey, who's I think should be an MVP candidate, should be top 5 MVP candidate. And play action with Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and McCaffrey, and Kittle. You don't want to fall behind against the Niners, but if you get a lead against them as well, they're not a type of team that's going to come back. If this game's close, it favors the Eagles. But that being said, if it gets ugly like the last few games have gotten, it favors the Niners. Like a lot of the Eagles games have been this year. If it's close, favors the Eagles all day long. Eagles know how to win these close games. Niners tense up. If the Niners get a lead, it could get ugly quick. It could get ugly really quick if the Niners get a lead. And that goes for any team. Like when they played the Cowboys, it got ugly quick because the Niners got out to a lead, and when they get out to a lead, it's hard to come back against their team with their formula. Their formula is a great formula to pull out wins and to be a dominant team. They have all the makings of a Super Bowl team. So do the Eagles. So do some other teams. But if the Niners get a lead, this game could get ugly. That's my biggest fear. I'm going to give my prediction on the game. Eagles fans, you might want to turn away at this one. Someone I know, before I actually do that, before I give my prediction, it'll come up as a header. But before I do that, so one of my friends that I play in a free poker league with, his name is Ed. We call him Edible. He said, me and him both said the same thing at the beginning of the season. We both said that the winner of this first matchup between the two, most likely between the Eagles and Niners, he's a Niners fan, by the way. Really good Niners fan. He wasn't like complaining about it like a lot of Niners fans were. He took the loss and owned up to it. And he also supports the Eagles as well, which makes it easy to own up to it. But me and him, that's neither here or there. Me and him said the team that wins this first matchup is likely going to lose the second matchup. The main reason for that is because any time two good teams play each other, the team that loses that first matchup is going to be able to look at film more, correct their mistakes, correct their mistakes, and look at what the other team did well and counteract that. The team that won isn't going to be able to really know what adjustments that other team's going to make. You have to self-scout really more than anything in that game. See what you did well and predict what adjustments the other team's going to make. So if these two teams see each other again in an NFC championship, the team that wins this Sunday likely isn't winning twice. That being said, I think the Niners are going to win this game. And I think it might get ugly. Eagles might get a late touchdown to make it closer. But Niners win by 10 points in this game. I got the Niners 31-21. Niners are a very talented team. So are the Eagles. But this game feels like a Niners spot. I've been saying that all year long. I said it before when the schedule came out. This game feels like a Niners spot. I'm perfect on my predictions for the Eagles schedule before the year. I said they would lose to the Jets before the year. I'm perfect on it so far. I said they would beat the Chiefs. This is a spot I think the Eagles lose. The Niners are going to want it more, just like the Eagles wanted it more against the Chiefs due to a revenge factor. The Niners are going to want to prove that if they had Brock Purdy, they would have won. They would have went to the Super Bowl. That's out the window. That they didn't go to the Super Bowl, but they're going to want this game more. They need it more if they want to get to 1 seed. That being said as well, I don't think they're going to be able to get to 1 seed because I think the Eagles are not going to lose back-to-back games. Earlier in the year, if you asked me what's going to happen in the 6-game stretch that the Eagles have had, this gauntlet so far, I would have said the Eagles lose to the Niners and Cowboys. You're not beating the Cowboys twice. But at this point, watching the Eagles through 11 games, the Eagles are not. You can book this. The Eagles are not losing back-to-back games. Jalen Hurts won't let it happen. The Eagles leaders won't let it happen. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, Lane Johnson. They won't let this team lose back-to-back games. Like I said before, it's Patriots-esque. You're not losing back-to-back games. Since the Flower speech, as I stated earlier, with Jalen Hurts under center, they're 30-5 and haven't lost a back-to-back game since before that Flower speech. Last time they lost the back-to-back game was Buccaneers coming into Philly. They lost that, and then the following week, the Eagles went to Las Vegas and lost to the Raiders. That's the last time this Eagles team with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni lost back-to-back games. It's been a long time, over 2 years. They're not going to lose back-to-back games. This team refuses to lose. They're going to lose one of these. I'd be shocked if they win both. But I think there's a better chance they win both than they lose back-to-back. They're not losing back-to-back games. So if they win this Niners game, they're losing against the Cowboys most likely. Most likely. But if they win this Niners game, I'm sorry, Cowboys and Cowboys fans. The Eagles will not lose next week if they lose this week against the Niners. They're not dropping back-to-back games. Now, the Seahawks game scares me a little bit just because the spot of the schedule. But we aren't losing back-to-back. You can book it. It's going to be an exciting game this Sunday. I'm very excited for it. Going to be having to deal with the rain again, which will suck. But that favors the Niners too with the play action game, Christian McCaffrey running the ball. But this should be a very exciting game. I got the 49ers winning 31-21 against the Eagles. Hopefully I'm wrong, but it just doesn't feel like a good spot for the Eagles. I want to let you all know to head over and visit a good spot for cars, though. This is a good spot, unlike this game for the Eagles. This is a good spot. Go visit Dan the Man Stanley at Sheridan Nissan, where they will hook you up with a brand new car. Just let them know Luke Saranka and Uncaged Sports Talk sent you. Now, for Luke's list, my NFL Power Rankings, Week 13 edition. Trending down 6 spots. There's a little bit of a typo there. They trend down 6 spots. They're 23rd now in my power rankings. The Los Angeles Chargers coming at 23. Joey Bosa getting hurt obviously hurts them. Quentin Johnson's not good, not a good receiver. They just aren't living up to what they've been supposed to be. Herbert is like the anti-Hurts. He doesn't win. He has all the talent, but for some reason he doesn't win. Even with people like Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Derwin James on the defense. Chargers trend down 6 spots to 23. Finally got to move them down. I've given them the benefit of the doubt majority of the season, but because most of the teams in the NFL are bad, but the Chargers have joined that bad group. Trending up is the Atlanta Falcons. This one's almost by default. They move up 7 spots to 17th in my power rankings. There's not much to say about this spot. It's just by default after their win because of how bad the rest of the NFL is. Coming in at number 10 is the Buffalo Bills. They moved down 1 spot. They're right here at 10 because I still think they're a good team. They just have had stuff not go their way this year. They've underperformed at times, but I still think they're a good team and they're better than the teams below them, like the Texans. They're slightly better than the Texans and some other teams below them. Coming in at number 9 is the Denver Broncos. They move up 2 spots. The Broncos are on a roll right now. Russell Wilson's looking good. He's a game manager right now, but their defense is looking great. Ever since that loss to the Dolphins, the Broncos are on a roll. They're getting back to where they want to be. They have a good shot to make the playoffs. I'd love to see them get in the playoffs, see what they can do with Russell Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine. I'd love to see what they can do. Patrick Surtain on defense. I'd love to see what the Broncos can do. They come in at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is the Detroit Lions. Same reason as last week. Same statements as last week about the Lions. They're leaking oil big time. Jared Goff is starting to turn the ball over, which is not good. and he's the same old Jared Goff he's been in the past. When you get pressure on him, he starts to crack. But that defense for the Lions is horrible. It's going to bite them in the playoffs. Hopefully, for my Eagles' sake, if we get to 1 seed, it bites them in round 1, and the Eagles get to play the 6th seed. But the Lions moved down 2 spots to number 8. They're leaking oil. That defense is bad in Detroit. Coming in at number 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They move up 1 spot just because the Lions fell, and the Lions are leaking oil big time. The Jaguars, solid team. Just something lacking about them right now, their defense and Trevor Lawrence. And so far this year, Jaguars are solid, but just lacking that extra oomph to get them to that top part of the rankings. The Dolphins coming at number 6. They're at 6 because they just don't beat good teams. They haven't beaten a good team yet. They haven't played a good team in a while. But they don't beat good teams. It's Cowboys-ish. The Dolphins have a good offense, good defense, but need to see them be able to beat a team like the Chiefs, like the Cowboys, like the Ravens, like the Niners or Eagles. But they just don't show up sometimes. They don't show up when those games come around. Coming in at number 5 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They stay at 5. The receiving core is Rashee Rice is starting to come on, but the receiving core is still very bad. Not much to say about them. Their defense is really good. Travis Kelce, Mahomes, Andy Reid. The Chiefs coming at 5. I just think the receiving core is going to hold them back when it matters. The Cowboys, I dropped them 1 spot even after their big win against the Commanders. I realized that the Ravens should be 1 spot ahead of them, but the Cowboys are looking really good, and there's a chance that Eagles-Cowboys is a matchup in the divisional round. Even if the Eagles lose their next 2, the Eagles do have the tiebreaker over the Cowboys due to NFC opponents, because common games would be even if Cowboys went out and Eagles lose their next 2 and then went out. The common games would be even. But the Eagles would have the NFC opponent's edge, as we'd only have 2 losses in the NFC. They would have 3. So the Eagles would, at worst, be the 2 seed in the NFC, with the Cowboys being the 5 seed still. The Cowboys coming at number 4 in the power rankings. They're looking really good, though. Have me a little bit concerned. Dak Prescott's looking like an MVP candidate. I have him at 3rd on my MVP list, as you can see if you go watch that on TikTok. But coming in at number 3, the Baltimore Ravens. The Mark Andrews loss hurts them still. They looked a little shaky on offense, but it's their first week without Andrews. We'll see what they do moving forward. Their defense is maybe the best in all of football, or at least second best in all of football. The Ravens coming at number 2. Lamar Jackson's having a good year. They have a really good rushing game. They're number 1 in rushing yards. The Ravens coming at number 3. Coming in at number 2 is the 49ers. I've talked a lot about them. They're really good. They got a really good defensive line, really good linebacking core, Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy's looking really good right now. The Niners coming at number 2. Coming in at number 1 is the Eagles. As much as they've struggled in games, they just win. These other teams have flaws. They've lost. Every team has a flaw this year. The difference between these other teams and the Eagles just win. Despite their flaws, they find ways to win and refuse to lose. I actually had a stat I wanted to pull up and talk about before we move on to Luke's locks for the week. When trailing, we're tied in a game. Jalen Hurts is number 1 in passer rating with 136.6. Coming in at number 32, this is the biggest difference between the Eagles and Niners. Coming in at number 32 when trailing or tied in a game is Brock Purdy. with a 60 passer rating when trailing or tied. That's the biggest difference between the Eagles and Niners. The Niners don't win these close games, but we will see when Sunday rolls around. If the Niners pull ahead, it probably will get ugly. But if it's close, Eagles pull this one out. The Eagles are number 1 as of now. Niners are number 2. This game's for supremacy in the NFC right now, in the NFL right now. Now for Luke's locks. Luke's lock starts off on Thursday Night Football this week with the Cowboys minus 7.5 against the Seattle Seahawks. I like the Cowboys at home against the Seahawks. I think they should be able to pull this one off. Seahawks haven't looked good for the last 2 months, last month and a half. Geno Smith has reverted to his old ways. The Cowboys go in there, and this game gets ugly quick for the Seahawks. Cowboys win by 2 touchdowns, maybe more. Minus 7.5. I like that line a lot for the Cowboys. Lions minus 3.5 against the Saints. Lions, I think, get back on track this week after a loss on Thanksgiving against the Packers, having 10 days rest. Should help the Lions out a bit, help themselves scout a bit. Lions minus 3.5 against the New Orleans Saints. I like the Falcons minus 3.5 against the Jets. The Jets' quarterback situation is just really, really bad. I think the Falcons are able to cover this spread. Probably win by about a touchdown, maybe by 10 points. Because I don't see how the Jets are going to be able to score at all. This seems like a 13-3 game, 17-7 game, 13-7 type of game. Falcons win this game cover minus 3.5. I like the Cardinals plus 5.5 against the Steelers this week. Steelers play close games the entire year, and I think Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are able to keep this game close enough to cover. I don't know if they win. I don't think they win because the Steelers find ways to win, despite that they haven't really had a strong schedule they've played. So I think the Steelers win this game, but the Cardinals cover. The 5.5, I like the Cardinals with. And then to round out Luke's locks and to round out episode 18 of Uncaged Sports Talk, I got the Bengals plus 8.5. I think 8.5 is a really good line for the Bengals in this game against the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars are even with Jake Browning, I think the Bengals will be able to keep within 8. And the 8.5 is just a weird number. Jaguars might win by 8, but then Bengals cover. It's just a really weird number. But I think Jake Browning and the Bengals with Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon can do just enough to cover in this game against the Jaguars. The Bengals defense has been solid. I think they do just enough to cover against the Jaguars with the plus 8.5 line. If it's any less, if it's 7.5, I might go I might leave this game off of here. But if it's 6.5, I probably go Jaguars. But plus 8.5, I like the Bengals a lot with this line. That'll do it for this episode of Uncaged Sports Talk. Tune into the TikTok. On Friday, I will be doing my conference champion picks for college football for the Power 5 conferences, which will be really cool. I'm not a huge college football fan, but it'll be cool to see how I do with those picks. That'll do it, though, for this episode of Uncaged Sports Talk. Tune in next week for another edition of Eagles Cowboys Week. Remember to like, comment, follow, and subscribe on all of our platforms, as it is greatly appreciated. And let's go Birds against the Niners.